One of America's best-selling authors is Ernest Hemingway. This may come as some surprise to those who view that writer, despite his enormous influence on American literature, as a symbol of the pre-modern age. Yet, who will quarrel with statistics? And the statistics indicate that Ernest Hemingway's books still sell over 1 million copies a year. He was one of our most prolific writers, and his sudden death in the early 60s did not stop the steady momentum of his career. Islands in the Stream was published posthumously, and so was A Movable Feast, one of his most compelling works. And there's a great deal more, apparently, in Mrs. Hemingway's possession in New York City. The total body of Ernest Hemingway's work is seen to exist somewhere between a rumor and a mystery. There are 2 published bibliographies about it, and still a 3rd to come. What precisely is left among his papers is known perhaps best by 2 who have spent much of their time in examining them: Mary Hemingway, his widow, and Jo August, curator of the Hemingway collection at the John F. Kennedy Library. I'm Harold Hayes. Welcome to both of you.
Good afternoon.
This is a very exciting occasion, I think, for many people in our audience because of the enormous pull of Ernest Hemingway's work to this day, and specifically because you have material here this evening which has not been seen before. Among this material is a selection of 20 pictures, and I have read, I believe, in the Newsday account that there are thousands of photographs still unpublished.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we have about 6,000 photographs up there counted so far.
6,000?
Yeah, over 6,000 so far.
Well, this is a visual medium, first of all, so let's look at some of the photographs you've brought.
A lot of them have been published, too, through the years.
Fine. Let's see what we have here, and you tell us about them, Mrs. Hemingway, Miss August, too, as we go. What's the first one?
This is Ernest Hemingway. I would say he's about 2 years old, and he's dressed in a little white dress here, which his mother would call his Dutch dolly frock. I don't know how, he didn't appreciate this too much because it's written down in his scrapbooks that Mrs. Grace Hemingway kept, that when she would call him his little Dutch dolly, he'd come back and say, "No, I'm not a Dutch dolly, I'm Pawnee Bill." So he had different attitude than her about what he would dress as.
It's remarkable how identifiable he is in that picture. That is usually a picture that early in the childhood.
He looks too angelic.
Looks like a little Dutch dolly.
At least in the eyes. What's the next one?
Oh, I don't know what that is.
It's like
That's
a family portrait.
Daddy and Mommy and the kids, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, that was taken on a wedding anniversary. It was one of his parents' wedding anniversary.
And where is Ernest in the photograph?
He's behind. He's standing, isn't he?
Yeah.
And this is at the time of, at least the period of A Farewell to Arms, is it?
That's when he was in Italy, and the lady with him is the nurse that he glamorized and dramatized in A Farewell to Arms. Gladys von Karowski. I don't mean Gladys. Agnes von Karowski, whom I met a few years ago in Key West.
Is that so?
She
Is
and
she
her
still
husband
living?
were living there at that time.
Uh-huh. Is she alive today?
I don't know. She was a couple of years ago.
Yes. What's the
Very
next?
nice lady.
Yeah. It's a recuperation picture here, I suppose.
Yeah.
Is that Hemingway on
Yeah.
crutches in the center of it?
Yes.
That's right.
Where was
Apparently.
this, Mrs. Hemingway?
I don't know. That was long before I knew him.
Well, that was in Italy also.
Uh-huh.
That was at the hospital where he was.
Now, he went home to Michigan from this point in his career to recuperate, did he not?
Yeah.
Wasn't that about the time of the writing of the Nick Adams stories? Or did they come sometime
Big
after?
Two-Hearted River is concerns, he doesn't identify it very closely, but it does concern a man recently back from World War I.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say so outright, as I
No.
recall, but there is a kind of a feeling of that there had been an estrangement, and he's now going back to a place that he loved or something like that.
Is this a picture after his time in World War I? Looks like a group of cut-ups here.
Yeah, he's with 2 friends, and this was after he returned from the war, because he's wearing a cap that he received when he was in Italy.
He stayed on in Michigan for some time before he then became a newspaper man. Is that the correct chronology?
Yes, he worked for the Toronto Star.
Mm-hmm. But there was an interlude, what, of about a year or so or longer in Michigan before he went on to
He
the Star.
stayed one winter in Michigan,
Uh-huh.
and then got a job in Chicago, and then when did he get married? Before he went on to the Toronto Star, I guess.
Yeah, I think
I don't
it was
remember.
I think
Next
it was
picture is
before.
Gertrude Stein.
Gertrude
And
Stein
who-
with Bumby.
Right.
With, the baby. their first son, in Paris, of course.
This now was at the time that the book, Movable Feast, was written about, correct?
Yes.
These earlier
Yeah.
years. And that's Hemingway there with whom?
With Bumby again.
Yeah, Jack, of course.
And Jack now is the father of the 2 Hemingway girls that are making such a splash in the big city. Is that correct?
Yes, he's the father of 3 daughters, actually, but the youngest one is at home.
Jack lives in Idaho.
Yes.
Uh-huh. And is it the middle son who's in Africa now,
Yes.
working with the
and-
game department
yes,
there?
and Dr. Gregory Hemingway is here in New York.
Uh-huh.
That,
And-
I'm almost positive that picture, which was taken in Paris in his early days there, was done by a famous photographer of those days named Man Ray.
Oh, yes. Still quite
He
famous
did
and still
another
alive.
of Ernest with some kind of a bandage around his head, but I'm almost sure he'd had that peculiar accent.
Is this when the chandelier fell on his head?
Wasn't a chandelier.
What was it?
In the old days, toilets had water closets up on the wall.
Yes.
And when he pulled the string for the toilet, the whole thing fell down.
He's a very strong man. Huh?
Exuberant or something.
What is the next? This is during the Spanish Civil War, I assume, or is that earlier?
No, I think it's
it could
late.
be.
Well,
It could be in Madrid, in the Hotel Florida, during the Spanish Civil War, or it could even be at Sun Valley, Idaho, in 1939 or 40.
Well, of course, the legend by now was intact and growing, so I imagine many of the pictures that you have must have started when? In the early 30s and brought forward to the time of his death, Miss August?
well, I have photographs in the collection that go from before his birth, even. Photographs that his father had taken on glass plates of microbiological studies that he was
Yes,
doing.
that's
His father was a doctor, and that's why the
I
photographs
sent
were
those
the-
up from Key
Yeah,
West.
they were fabulous, quite interesting photographs. But they cover his entire life.
This is with Gary Cooper. Where,
Yeah,
in Idaho?
out in Idaho,
The
yeah.
shooting grounds
Mhm.
out there, huh?
Yeah. Ducks or pheasant or a quail.
There was a story that Cooper said to him at the time that he knew he was dying of cancer. Beat you to the barn. Was that,
Yes.
was that his expression?
Mm-hmm.
They were good, close friends. What, dating back to
Yes.
the time of Room the Bell
Close was
Tolls?
an awfully good shot, wing shot.
Mhm.
Pardon?
How far back does their friendship date? To the making of For Whom the Bell Tolls?
Oh, I suppose. I imagine so. They met each other, and then, but it wasn't primarily in Hollywood. It was that Coops and his wife and their baby daughter Maria used to go out consistently to Sun Valley from its very early days
I see.
for the hunting season as well as for skiing in the winter.
Mm-hmm. This picture is
Look at those
when-
fish! Wow.
It's huge, right?
I don't know where it could have been taken because those are marlin, and it looks like Bimini,
Yeah.
but they didn't fish for marlin much off Bimini. They fished for tuna, giant tuna. The 500, 700 pound tuna. But those are big marlin.
There you are,
There's
right,
my
your own.
fish.
Now this is quite
That's a
recent.
broadbill swordfish. It's not a marlin.
Caught when and under what circumstances?
I went after I finished a book. I went down to Baja California, the tippy top, and and at a place called Cabo San Lucas, and went fishing and caught that beast with a little aid from the strong arm of a friend. When I thought, really, this fish, it only weighed 130 pounds.
That's
but
about
it was
twice as
gonna
much you weigh. isn't it?
Pulled my arm right out of the shoulder socket. I thought, so it wasn't really entirely my fish. Nobody touched the reel though.
This
except
is,
me.
excuse me, this is aboard the Pilar?
It could be aboard his earlier boat, the Anita. But it looks, boats look pretty much the same. That's Ernest with a cap on. I don't know who the other people are. So it could be that boat he had before he bought Pilar,
Mm-hmm.
which was in like 37 or something like that.
And the next is
That's
the two of you.
Pilar. That's dear old Pilar.
God, that looks like a
Off
movie
Cuba.
still. When
Like
was
a
this
what?
made? Looks like a movie still.
Gee, I don't know. I have no idea, but we loved it aboard that boat, and the Gulf Stream, and all the life, the whole bit.
The boat still exists in Cuba. Is that correct?
Last time I heard, yes, she's pretty old now. She's. I think he bought her in '36 or '37, and You know, boats don't last that long as a rule. People sometimes do, but boats don't.
Well, let's talk about some of the material that exists in the papers. In the accounts of the body of his work, one has to do with a false start, I suppose you would describe it, and The Sun Also Rises. And where it is also, a mention is also made of Fitzgerald's suggestions about opening that particular book. And there was some revision made, as I assume, as a result of Fitzgerald's correction. You have both the original manuscript, or the first version, one of the first versions, and the way the book actually started. So
The difference, I think, is really amusing. It might be encouraging to people whose editors ask them to rewrite, because it's so different. I just read you a bit of the thing as it was published.
Fine.
Revised and then published. Robert Cohen was middleweight boxing champion of Princeton. Do not think that I am very impressed by that as a boxing title, but it meant a lot to Cohen. He cared nothing for boxing. In fact, he disliked it. But he learned it painfully and thoroughly to counteract the feeling of inferiority and shyness he had felt on being treated as a Jew at Princeton. There was a certain inner comfort in knowing he could knock down anybody who was snooty to him, although, being very shy and a thoroughly nice boy, he never fought except in the gym. That's the way the thing was published. This is the way Ernest started in the beginning, and I think it's kind of funny. This is a novel about a lady. Her name is Lady Ashley, and when the story begins, she is living in Paris, and it is, capital letter, spring. That would be a good setting for a romantic but highly moral story. As everyone knows, Paris is a very romantic place. Spring in Paris is a very happy and romantic time. Autumn in Paris, although very beautiful, might give a note of sadness or melancholy that we shall try to keep out of this story. Now, you know, if you were editing, as you used to, you'd just slash out that autumn in Paris bit. It has nothing to do with the story whatsoever.
I would never touch a word of Ernest Hemingway's under any circumstance. But
Well,
that is a marvelous
different,
illustration
yeah.
of different changes, particularly in point of view, isn't it? Because you start with the woman in one case and the boxing
It doesn't bring her
aspect
in
with the
until
other.
quite a lot later in the actual book.
Now, am I not correct that this was as a result of Fitzgerald's suggestion, that this whole front end be lopped off?
Well, that's the story as it has come down. I haven't found any evidence of it yet in the papers that Fitzgerald actually said, you know, to get rid of the beginning of the story like that. But that's the story as it comes down.
Well, don't you have a letter from Fitzgerald with specific reference to the opening of the book?
No. I
Not
don't
the
know.
opening,
No.
but a great number of other pages. That part may have been lost.
Yeah, it could have
Of the
been.
letter.
Yeah.
We have also a fragment from Death in the Afternoon, which he himself apparently took out.
Yeah, I have a fragment which was supposed to be part of the last chapter, and in it he's comparing 3 continents. He writes, "It is a strange country, Spain, and few people have ever gone to it to find it as they expected. Peninsulas often have much of the quality of islands without the feeling of confinement that an island gives. They are islands with a road out of, and the 3 peninsulas that I have lived in, Michigan, Italy, and Spain, 4 really, for Michigan is 2 peninsulas, the upper and the lower. Upper Michigan was a true peninsula, but all Michigan was a province. Italy was a true peninsula, and it was only in the north that you did not feel the island confinement. And Spain is no peninsula, but a continent." And then he goes on and he talks about Michigan and how it changed from when he was first growing up, and how it, you know, the country just was burnt down and then, you know, regrown, and the differences between the 2 forest lands that grew there.
Is there, we had a facsimile of that. Is there any reason for the cut in this particular instance? Because out of context, it sounds fine.
Well, yeah, out of context, I think it would sound better than it would in the book, because the book was about Spain and bullfighting, and now we go on talking about Michigan and
Yeah.
Italy. So I think that's
I believe he's a
probably
rigorous
why.
editor of his own material.
It's a terrible temptation sometimes, you know. I find writing things, something attracts my interest, and I want to go on and on and on about something totally, almost entirely divorced, an enormous detour from the business at hand.
Don't you hate to
you
throw
find
it
that?
away, too, once you've done
Pardon?
that? Don't you hate to throw it away?
Oh, kills me. Just kills me.
Well, it's funny, in the opening of Sun Also Rises, there was one part that he did cut out that he later published in A Movable Feast, so he didn't throw everything
Oh, really?
away.
What part was this?
He never threw anything away. Actually threw it away, like in the wastebasket.
Yeah.
Never.
Well, what part was this?
There was one section about Ford Madox Ford, which was first written into The Sun Also Rises, and then he later published it in A Movable Feast.
Which brings to mind a question about the change and shifts in his style. A Movable Feast was written approximately when? In the 50s?
Yes.
Yet it seems to me as a part
late
of,
50s.
very much a part of the body of the early 30s, that is the tone and the...
Well, he
and the
stuck
shape.
himself back, you know, and his mind went back. When we were about to publish that book, he has, I was concerned about the accuracy of his recounting in the book of how he walked past such and such a place and down such a street which was bright in the sunshine, or into such another street and whatnot. So I flew over to Paris to retrace his steps and see if he'd made, it wouldn't have mattered if he'd left streets out, but if he'd put a mistaken street in, it would have been, you know, inaccurate.
You went specifically for that purpose?
Yeah.
What did you find?
He'd been accurate, except in one instance he had a little place where they lived, Place de la Contrescarpe. He had it Place de Contrescarpe. He left out the L.A., the la, but otherwise perfectly accurate, every street.
There are apparently thousands of letters that he has written and people have written him within the collection. You have something from Fitzgerald, Miss August. Let's hear that too. I remarked to Miss Hemmingway, this is the first opportunity I've had to scoop the press with anything on this show. So please do go ahead.
This was a 6-page letter that Scott Fitzgerald had written Ernest on June 1st, 1934. And in it, he just talks a little bit about what he's doing and friends that they have seen, and then he goes on to say, quote, "I think it is obvious that my respect for your artistic life is absolutely unqualified, that save for a few of the dead or dying old men, you are the only man writing fiction in America that I look up to very much. There are pieces and paragraphs of your work that I read over and over. In fact, I stopped myself doing it for a year and a half because I was afraid that your particular rhythms were going to creep in on mine by process of infiltration. Perhaps you will recognize some of your remarks in Tender, but I did every damn thing I could to avoid that."
Tender as the night.
That letter has been published, am I not correct?
I've never seen it.
Because the reference to the influence of Hemingway on Fitzgerald himself had made at some particular point in time. And this was 36, you say?
34.
34.
Yeah.
Of course, there are lots of criticism of the letter. Joe's read the nicer part of it, but there are some places where he's rather drastically critical, with reason.
Well, what was he
perhaps.
criticizing, though? You mean something specific or the style?
Well, he said at one point, remember when he said that Ernest was regarding the heroine as
Oh, that's when he's talking about A Farewell to Arms.
Yes,
Right,
yes.
right.
Do you have it there?
No, I don't. But he's talking about Catherine in A Farewell to Arms, saying that she talks much too glibly.
Now, this is
Yes.
the lady that we saw the photograph of, who was the prototype for
Right,
Catherine, correct?
right.
She talks too glibly.
Right, talks much too glibly. He says that Ernest is looking at her through the eyes of a 19-year-old man, and he's looking at Lieutenant Henry in A Farewell to Arms through the eyes of a mature man that he is now, looking back on himself. He says the contrast between the two is much too much.
I thought some of his dialogue was kind of not so great between Catherine and Henry. It was
You
sort
and
of,
Fitzgerald agreed.
you know.
Well, he tended to take Fitzgerald rather seriously in some of his criticisms, according to
I
the
think yes.
literature that
he
existed.
respected Fitzgerald's talent very much, as he wrote in A Movable Feast. He said something about his talent being as delicate as the wings of a butterfly, or as the dust on the wings of a butterfly, something like that.
yeah.
This letter was at a very low point in Fitzgerald's life, too, I suppose, around the time of the crack-up.
No, before that.
33, 34?
34, wasn't it? Yes. It was pre-crack-up. They were both in Paris, of course.
Yeah.
And Fitzgerald was apparently, wasn't he being quite successful in?
Yeah,
I should
so.
think,
It's the time
yeah.
of Tender in the Night, maybe.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about what else there is. because there have been news stories about this, and there was very great interest and curiosity. Carlos Baker, for example, raises the question about Dangerous Summer, which was an extended manuscript of which a part was published in Life.
Very, very small part.
Well, what can you tell us, Mrs. Hemmingway? What is there beyond that?
Well, I've got this the manuscript in a bank box, safe deposit box, and I'm planning to pull it out and go over it again because there is a possibility, I remember it well enough, there is a possibility that quite a good, what do you want to call it, sort of a travelogue, in a sense, with not too many things of the Cape and the muleta and all that stuff, not too much bullfight.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of stuff about people and conversations and character sketches and the country and things like that, which might make a pretty interesting book.
Well, the portions that were published in Life were 3 parts?
Was
Two or
it
three
two
parts?
Two, I think.
But not published in book form. Is
No.
that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that presumably there is still a book-length manuscript.
Oh, yes, but I wouldn't want to have so much bullfighting.
Well, is this how large a
I don't
fragment
think
is?
Americans care about bullfighting, do you?
Well, they did about
I
Death
do.
in the Afternoon. I mean, this is a memorable book by
But you see, yeah, but an awful lot about Death in the Afternoon was not basically about
Sure.
bullfighting,
Yeah.
you know. And this might
George
be
Plimpton would read it, I would think.
Well, I wouldn't want us to depend on one reader.
Well, and let me persist just one moment
I
on
haven't
this.
seen it lately, you know.
How large a fragment is it of the whole body of what he
Oh,
worked
this,
on?
I should think, possibly the stuff that Life published would amount to perhaps 15% of the total
Is
manuscript,
that
which
so?
is vast.
It's huge, isn't it?
Yes, vast, and would require an enormous amount of editing. I mean, cutting.
Mhm.
My principle is that anything may be cut from Ernest's things, but no one may add anything to it. If it's published as Ernest stuff, it's all his, nobody else's. So we might have to cut it a lot.
It's a very
we
difficult
do.
chore, isn't it, to know what to cut?
It's just hard work.
Do you feel secure in knowing yourself as to what he would probably have cut had he revised it?
Oh, well, I don't do it until, you know, I consult with Scribners, people at Scribners.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't assume full responsibility. And sometimes if we disagree, you know, we work it out.
His editor
We
was...
have in other books.
Excuse me.
Mhm.
His editor was Mr. Charles Scribner?
No, Max Perkins was his most famous editor.
Yes, of course. But
Some
after
time ago.
Perkins' death...
And then a man named Wallace Mayer.
Wallace Mayer.
Wallace Mayer.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody else, but I can't remember who.
It was a
It's
Harry
a-
Brake, I believe.
That's
Bragg.
right. Harry Bragg,
Yes.
right.
But he's dead. So I was wondering if he had a surviving editor.
I guess not, no.
What about A Movable Feast? Now, this is intriguing because Carlos Baker suggests there was at least a sketch left out of Movable Feast about the Fitzgeralds' trip to a football weekend with the Fitzgeralds.
We were reading that
Yes,
today.
just today. Yeah, there were a few sketches that he left out from that
Four.
book.
Four?
Yeah.
Well, what are they?
One was about this trip to the football game at Princeton. It was Pauline and Ernest and F. Scott Fitzgerald and Zelda. Another was about Ford Maddox Ford.
Well, before you go on, can you tell us just a bit more about the football game weekend?
I suppose so. It was mostly about the car ride to the game and problems that they had with the car. Some
The return
disagreement.
from the green.
Was it return from the green?
game.
Yeah,
On the train and then by car.
and by car.
Yeah.
This small
What-
discussion as to whether the American cars need oil changes and things like this. And it's a little row, and but it was I can't really
It
remember.
wasn't very complimentary
Yeah.
to Mr. Fitzgerald
Was
or
it,
Zelda.
Was it of an entity? That is, was it a fragment, or was it as
Oh, no.
those
It was an
chapters
entire
are
incident.
formed
It was
chapters in the rest of the book?
rounded thing.
So it is of great literary value, I would think.
Yes, but not very nice.
Perhaps after another generation.
I don't suppose I'll burn it, but I have, since I inherited it all, I would have the right to.
Sure,
if
you
I
would.
felt it necessary.
Uh-huh.
I don't think it should ever be published. It's just unkind, you know. It may be accurate reporting, but the people were pretty badly behaved, and so in this case, accurate reporting is still unkind. Unnecessary, in my opinion, as
So,
well.
Fascinating and interesting and difficult question of what within the body
What's
of an
ethical?
author's work
Yeah.
should be left to his public, or left in the preservation of the reputation or the interest of those who were close to him.
I think that I have carefully, as you know, preserved everything.
Everything.
Dug it out from Cuba and Key West and everywhere, and preserved the stuff. But I don't think some of it should ever be published, really.
There's a difference between publishing something for the mass public and just leaving something for the people who need it for literary work or for scholarship. I mean, like, it's a difference between publishing something that isn't that good and...
Is this not that good?
Well, if it's one little section taken completely out of context, perhaps it's not the same as, you know, using it for some other kind of literary criticism, things like that.
Well, I can speak to the question of being a reader and a fan of both men. And it would be very difficult for me to think of anything that's extraneous to their lives that I wouldn't be interested in as a devoted reader to them, which I think poses the hardest question in this respect.
We will give Mr. Hayes permission to go up to Walton and look at that, but not to quote from it. How about that?
That's a good idea.
Well, one of the most exciting experiences I ever had was going to Princeton when I was first in New York as a very young man, and going to the rare books collection at the library there and being allowed to see the original manuscript of Gatsby with soft-leaded emendations. And then there was no reason for them to let me see this, but it was one of the most thrilling things in the world to be able to hold this in hand. What are the three other parts of A Movable Feast, you say?
One is on Ford Madox Ford, and it's not really a story, it's just more or less personal remembrances of the man.
Also extremely uncomplimentary.
He was a tough man on people around him, of course.
He's mean. Mean, you know.
What were the other two?
Another one was on Larry Gaines, a fighter.
Yeah, prize fighter.
Prize fighter.
Larry Gaines.
He was a young American who went over to Paris and thought that he could make a better living fighting over there or something like that. And
Had nothing to do with the opening of A Sun Also Rises.
No.
No?
Oh, no. Not at all. Quite a different thing.
No. And
It's the longest piece. But it's all sort of boxing and I think rather a bore.
yeah, I don't think I even finished reading it to tell
Good
you the
heavens.
truth.
Reading it. Well, that's three of the four
Well, the boxing
fragments.
promoter in Paris, it proves him to be, as apparently many boxing promoters are supposed to be, a crook.
Will you come back to another night and let's continue talking about what's left in the Hemingway estate? We've run out of time this evening, but thank you so much, Miss August and Mary Hemingway. Good night for Round Table. I'm Harold Hayes.